skeptics, who would like to regard the Exodus as myth, might resist the idea that it actually happened, because this would imply that God does indeed exist. Believers, on the other hand, may feel that a scientific explanation of the biblical story takes God out of the equation.
But in the book of Exodus, God does not suspend nature. He manipulates it. In other words, according to the Bible, we should be able to understand the science behind the miracles. And the greatest miracle of them all was the parting of the sea. After the death of the Egyptian firstborn males, Pharaoh let the Israelites go. He then changed his mind and pursued them, finding them trapped on the shores of a sea. The Hebrew text calls this sea Yam Suf. And it was here where the miracle occurred. The sea parted, the Israelites crossed to safety, and then the waters came back, swallowing the entire Egyptian army, overturning chariots, drowning all the horses and soldiers. For years, explorers have searched for evidence of the miracle of the parting of the sea. They've mounted underwater archaeological quests, looking for ancient chariots, swords, and any evidence of drowned Egyptian armies. There is a theory that a huge subsurface shelf in the Red Sea could have been exposed for a short time during a powerful storm, providing a land bridge for the Israelites to cross. But the search has always been unsuccessful. Who would have thought that instead of diving, it should have been driving? That's because Yam Suf, Hebrew for the place where Moses parted the waters, has for years been mistranslated as Red Sea, when in fact the correct translation is Reed Sea. And reeds grow in sweet water, not salt water, in lakes, not oceans. We should have been looking for a lake. But which lake is the Bible referring to when it describes the parting of the Reed Sea?
It goes like this. Oh, and like that, like almost like a figure 8. It's
Using our dates for the Exodus, we tracked down an ancient artifact that records the precise location of Yam Suf. It also provides us with the first archaeological evidence for the parting of the sea. We found a hieroglyphic inscription on a granite monument that tells the entire story of the Exodus from Pharaoh's point of view. The Bible calls Moses a king. On this stone, Moses is called the Prince of the Desert. The Bible calls the Israelites God's people. The granite calls them the evil ones. And then, the granite corroborates the miracle of the parting of the sea. The symbol can be read by anyone. 3 waves and 2 knives, the parted sea.
The 3 water signs, one on top of the other, is typically used to apply to different types of bodies of water. It can apply to the Nile, can apply to a marsh, can apply to the sea. But what is not so common is when you have that word in combination with these 2 knives. The fact that you have these 2 knives associated with it would suggest that this is water that is cut, water that is divided. This might be an allusion to the waters that the Red Sea or the Reed Sea were divided. in Exodus chapter 14.
Oh, I see it. To examine the text better, we got a pressing of the hieroglyphic. And as it turns out, the Egyptian text doesn't just mention the parting of the sea.
This is the best one. You see the two knives?
It also mentions a specific location next to where the sea parted. The place is called Pi Haroti. And today archaeologists know exactly where it was, enabling us to locate Yam Suf, the place where the Bible states the sea parted. The Israelites crossed to safety, and human history was changed forever.
It's an ancient lake that survived until the 1850s. When the Suez Canal was put in, this ancient lake finally died. Professor Manfred Bitak, after conducting thorough study of this area, proposed that this lake was known to the Egyptians as Patufi, the marshland, the marshy sea. And the word tuf, Egyptian word for reeds, is the same word as Suf in Hebrew. So that Yam Suf, he suggested, was a name derived from this body of water. Now it's called the Al-Balach Lake.
Under the ever-watchful eye of the Egyptian authorities, we travel to Lake El-Bala, the exact spot where one of the greatest biblical miracles is supposed to have taken place. The salt beds and reeds testify to the fact that at one time, the salty waters of the Mediterranean and the sweet waters of Lake El-Bala intermingled here.
Behind me is what's left of Lake Bala. You can see the salt marshes, you can see the reeds. This whole entire area was one big lake or sea. But because of the Suez Canal, today, you can literally walk or drive through the Sea of Reeds.
One of the problems most people have today is they pull out a map and they try to find out where were these places that the Bible's talking about. But you can't use a modern-day map. You have to use a map that's 3,000 years older. And we are working on this by taking satellite images where we can actually see the depressions from ancient lakes. And so we can actually begin to understand what the northeastern delta of Egypt was like 3,500 years ago.
Identifying the precise location of Yam Suf means that we can finally explain the miracle of the parting of the sea. This satellite photo clearly demonstrates that Lake El-Bala is close to the edge of the Nile Delta, where silt accumulates and collapses from time to time. As Pharaoh chased the Israelites to the shores of Lake El-Bala, the extreme seismic activity that caused the 10 plagues and the Santorini eruption would have now caused the delta to start sliding into the eastern Mediterranean. And as millions of tons of soil moved forward, the edge of the African plague, which had now been released from its burden, must have risen between 1 and 1.5 meters. In other words, the sea parted. Water would have cascaded from higher ground to lower ground and drained from pools and sinkholes, creating dry land for the Israelites to cross. At this point, further seismic activity or another collapse of the delta would have sent a major tsunami crashing against the coast.
We get some glimpse of these tidal waves in Turkey, where they carved out channeled scablands 30 miles inland. And in order to do that at the shore, they would have had to be more than half as high, these waves, as the Empire State Building. And that's exactly the description that we do have in the Bible.